Fund and the East African country of Kenya did agree to a 38-month financing agreement under its extended fund facility and extended credit facility. Now, the most recent payment brings the total to 1.65 billion US dollars. According to the International Monetary Fund, Kenya would now receive a total of 2.416 billion US dollars from the present agreement, which was further made. The increase was agreed upon by both parties last month to cover expenses for external finance due to the drought and difficult global financial conditions. President William Ruto, who took office in September, intends to eliminate costly commercial borrowing in favor of less expensive sources like the World Bank to lessen the burden that the debt servicing puts on revenue. This is coming after the International Monetary Fund announced that it would release $3 billion US dollars to Ghana by the first quarter of 2023, according to the finance minister, Atta Ofori-Atta, that is in Ghana. The finance minister claims that the medium-term macroeconomic framework structure reforms and the important fiscal measures included in the 2023 budget are in line with the International Monetary Fund supported program. On economic policies and reforms, Ghana has secured a staff-level agreement that will be supported by a 3-year arrangement under the extended credit facility in that report. Now, furthermore, away from the situation to do with Kenya and the International Monetary Fund, we head to Rwanda, where apparently services have outshined as the economy registers double-digit growth in that particular side of the country. Rwanda's economy grew 10% in the third quarter of 2022, thanks in large part to the services sector, which contributed 47% of this particular growth. Now, the outlook contained in the growth, which is contained in the latest gross domestic product update announced on Monday by the National Institute of Statistics as well as the Ministry of Finance and Economic Planning from July to September. The monetary value of all finished goods and services produced in Rwanda was estimated at 3,583 randis franc. So as you continue to look at that, that is close to 3,583 billion randis franc, up from 2,758 billion randis franc in the previous quarter. Despite an overall growth, agriculture and industry did not do well. Yusuf Murangwa, the Director General at the ministry, did reveal this. And then the agriculture sector has park construction deceased by 17% compared to the same period last year. However, Murangwa said this was offset by a very good performance of the service sector, where hotels and restaurants increased by 90%, ICT did increase by 34%, education increased by 26%, transport also further increased by 26%, among other services. Now, instantly, those that underperformed, according to previous reports by the agency, includes education, transport, and some other services were the ones that actually overperformed. Now, those that underperformed, rather, include construction, which decreased by 17% compared to the same period last year. And the service sector, where hotels and restaurants increased by 90%, ICT further increased by 26%, by 34%, rather, education increased by 26%, transport also increased by 26%, among other services. Now, the overall service sector performed very well. Now, in industry, mining and quarrying, there was an increase of 5%, which also sharply increased to 33% as well. Air transport surged. According to the findings, air transport grew by 81%, while land transport increased by 17%. Now, after 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic, the aviation industry, Rwanda inclusive, is once again poised for a decade of growth. Locally, officials say that it is something that we should be looking at with a lot of patience, because you never know what will happen in the long run. Rwanda forecasts its economy to grow by 6.2% in the next years to come. And lastly, from Karibu, East Africa, we look at Tanzania's aviation sector performance, as the year 2022 could be described as a period with a mixture of fortunes for not only the African continent, but for the entire world in regards to the world of business. But looking at the fact that it's a period where most of the economies were rebounding from COVID-19, And on the other hand, it was a year following the precision air crash that claimed the lives of 19 people in Tanzania, as the introduction of value-added tax also led to the leasing of the aircraft. However, what gives the aviation stakeholders who spoke to quite a number of media recently is that they do believe that the industry is recovering at a higher pace than expected. Now, for example, Air Tanzania Company Limited Managing Director and CEO Ladislas Matindi said that the year 2022 was in their favor at the speed of resumption from the pandemic, as it was beyond high expectations for them to be recovering at this pace. The global aviation industry has been enduring one of the most difficult periods in history over the last 2 years. But in March this year, the International Air Transport Association predicted air passenger numbers to recover in 2024. The airline flew 663,720 passengers domestically, which is higher by 7.3% compared to the pre-pandemic level figures. Then foreign passenger traffic, on the other hand, jumped by 115.9% to 177,966 compared to the pre-COVID period of 2019. That is how you can see the increase in air transport in Tanzania. And now, besides that, that is all for Karibu East Africa this morning. Let's have more from the SMB International News. Now, with the international news, we start with Ethiopia's largest bank, which is the Commercial Bank of Ethiopia, which announced that it had resumed financial operations in some towns that had been troubled in the Tigray region after a shutdown of more than a year. The bank did say that it was continuing its efforts to expand its services and gradually resume operations in all branches. The government and rebels signed an agreement in Pretoria on November 2nd, and included a cessation of hostilities and withdrawal plus disarmament of Tiger forces, the restoration of federal authority in Tigray, and the reopening of access to the region, which is in catastrophic humanitarian situation. Now, on December 7th, the Tigray authorities confirmed that Mekelle, the capital of Tigray region, had been reconnected to the national power grid after more than a year of being cut off due to the war in the northern region of Ethiopia. Now, the northmost region of Ethiopia, home to 6 million people, has been virtually cut off from the world since the start of the conflict between the federal government led by Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and then the regional authorities of the Tigray People's Liberation Front, the TPLF. It had been deprived of many basic services, which include electricity, telecommunications, banks, fuel, etc. for more than a year. Now, the fighting began in November 2020 when Abiy Ahmed sent the federal army to arrest the region's leaders who had been challenging his authority for months, and whom he had apparently accused of attacking federal military bases. Now, also in question and answer session with MPs on November 15th, the Prime Minister said that the authorities had begun to restore telecommunications and electricity to some areas which had been affected by the same conflict. Now, the provisions of the agreement, which does not explicitly mention the restoration of electricity and telecommunications, are being implemented gradually. And now, this time around, looking at the service sector, the Ethiopian Commercial Bank is heading back to operations within the Tigray region as the conflict seems to be poising off. Away from Ethiopia, we look at Paris, where Paris has now called for resumption of talks between Tunisia and the International Monetary Fund. Now, the French Foreign Ministry has called for resumption of a discussion between the Tunisian authorities and the International Monetary Fund with a view of reaching a final agreement. In mid-October, the Washington institution reached an agreement with the Tunisian government to allow the release of payment $9 billion to help Tunisia face serious economic difficulties. But the aid, which was to be disbursed in installments starting in December, has not yet been approved by the International Monetary Fund Board. Now, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has learned with concern that the postponement of the examination of the file of Tunisia by the International Monetary Fund Board said that this is something that they are working upon at the end of it all. Now, in return for the International Monetary Fund loan, the government in Tunisia has committed to reforms, including a gradual lifting of state subsidies for basic foods, foods and energy, and of course a restructuring of public companies that have a monopoly in many of the sectors within Tunisia. Paris recalls the need to engage without the delay. The reforms are necessary for the stability and prosperity of the country. Now, in addition, France has taken note of the preliminary results and the low level of participation in the first round of Tunisian legislative elections. The legislative elections, on the other hand, were marked on Saturday by a record abstention over 90%, a slap in the face for President Kais Saied, whose opposition is calling for his departure. Lastly, for the international news, meanwhile, we look at the British Airways, as flights leaving US have been grounded over technical issue. The British Airways, on the other hand, has come out to apologize after flights due to depart from the US were grounded for several hours. The airline said the technical issue that affected some of its long-haul flights planning systems overnight had now been resolved. The British Airways passengers reported waiting for several hours in airports, with flights eventually departing after long delays. A spokesperson for the airline said the company was sorry for the disruption caused to customers' travel plans. It is understood that the short-haul flights were not affected by the technical problems, and there were no safety concerns whatsoever. There were long delays on long-haul flights, including those between London's Heathrow Airport and the US, as well as Canada, and other flights serving Gatwick Airport, including arrivals from Cancun in Mexico. Now, flights at the Heathrow impacted by the delays are now operating again. Terminal 5 is expected to be busy this afternoon, afternoon. As a result, it is not the first time the British Airways has been hit by technical problems. Now, if you look back in February, the airline apologized after cancelling all short-haul flights from Heathrow due to IT issues, and that is one of the other issues here, whereby they've come out to apologize for the fact that most of their customers were delayed and did not catch their scheduled flights in time due to some issues with the British Airways in this report. Now, particularly, as you can see, the aviation sector still faces some huge challenges on the African continent. However, you get to realize that most of the aviation sectors players are struggling to make sure that they get back onto the drawing board and recover as soon as possible. But besides that, just for you to quickly be reminded that investing is easy and possible with Zabo, a platform by Altex Eastafrica. You dial *292#, that is the USSD code for the MTN subscribers, and quickly kickstart your investment journey with Zabo. Zabo says, my money, my future. Powered by Altex Eastafrica, that quickly reminds you that with a minimum of 15,000 Ugandan shillings, after registration with your need, you'll be able to quickly start your investment journey and choose where you put your money. It is that simple, affordable, and of course, very reliable if you are to start investing your money. Safe, simple, and obviously secure for your business world and for your business journey. So quickly invest in bonds and securities by using Zabo. The opening time for the markets is 8:15 a.m. East African Standard Time, and the closing time is 3:15 p.m. East African Standard Time. Zabo says, my money, my future, and it's powered by Altex East Africa, which says, do something new. The markets on the Zabo platform are only closed during weekends and during public holidays, but the rest of the days between 8:15 to 3:15 p.m. they are open for you to quickly invest. That is Zabo for you. And of course, quickly, just to remind you that our social media platforms are active with Twitter, Smart24 TV, Facebook, Smart24 TV Official, Instagram is Smart24_TV, and YouTube is Smart24 TV Live. Please do remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. But not only that, also be reminded that it's very important for you to at least go to our website, www.smart24.tv, for more business details, reports, and of course, international updates for you to keep up to speed with business information as it is trending across the globe. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko. This is Smart Means Business. Good morning. After the break, we have more coming up. We have the business tips, sports business, entertainment business, social media trends, and more business outlets.